Shalom, shalom, everyone. Shavua Tov. Well, actually, Shabbat Shalom. It's almost Erev Shabbat, and I'm here for another episode of Twerski's Torah Tidbits with Mora Devora. And I want to welcome everyone, and I'm going to just take a minute to tag some friends and see if I can, okay, there we go. So I hope everyone's doing well this evening, and that you had a good, if you celebrated Passover, that you had a good Passover. I hope you also had a wonderful, those of you who celebrate Easter, I hope you had a good Easter. And we're going to have a wonderful time tonight with this is Parshat Shemini, and it's also called the eighth day. I decided to try or to call it the wonders of the eighth day. So we're going to be talking about that tonight. And this will give me a little bit of time here to tag a few friends and see if they can join us. I know some of my friends, as I've said many times, are sleeping. They'll catch it hopefully tomorrow or at some other time. And so anyway, I'm hoping you're all doing well and that you are enjoying your week. Well, Chag Pesach, well, actually, it's the Matzot, Chag Matzot, that we were really doing for these 7 days, but it's all been sort of rolled into Passover, what we just commonly, everybody calls Passover. So I'm just going to tag a few more friends here and hope that they will get on. And okay, I think I'm going to stop there and hopefully they'll find us. Shalom, shalom, Laureen. It's so nice to have you with me. And I think I saw that Anita was on, Anita Askren. It's always so nice to have my friends who seem to enjoy what I have to say, and I really appreciate you very, very much. And yes, happy counting of the Omer. Indeed, we're going to do that at the end tonight. And Ruby, my friend Ruby de Padua is also on. Shalom, Ruby. And Shabbat Shalom. We're almost there. It's just a few hours more. And I'm looking forward to this Shabbat. I need a rest. I had a lot of fun for Passover, for Pesach. I cooked for 3 days straight, and we cleaned one day. And with my husband did the majority of the cleaning, which is really sweet. And so, hi Mom, shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. I'm so glad you're watching. And I hope my mom won't be embarrassed. Would you guys please pray for my mom? She is really struggling with a myriad of issues. I'm not going to go into it all, but she really needs prayer for healing from our healer. And so we say refuah shlema in Hebrew. Colleen, welcome. It's so nice to have my dear friend from Maine on with us. And my dad, I just saw my dad popped in. So shalom, shalom, Daddy. I'm happy that you're here. And we're just going to wait for a few more minutes and see if a few more people join before we get started. So anyway, as I was saying, I was cooking for, Passover with my parents, and sadly, my mom, wasn't feeling well, so they weren't able to come. But that didn't stop me from cooking. I took over, food and everything, and so we've been having a lot of fun with that, sharing meals, even though sometimes we're not together. And shalom, Lori, shalom. I'm so happy you're on. And Anita, thank you for praying for my mom. Really, really do appreciate it. So anyway, and then we celebrated, because I live in the nations now. So in Israel, we only celebrate one Seder, but here we celebrate two. So I had my dear friends, Pat and Marita Renteria. They lead our little Torah study. I call it a Kehillah, but I'm not sure it's officially a Kehillah. But they came over and we had a wonderful time. So shalom, Sharon. It's so nice to have you on with me. I appreciate you guys and your support and your prayers. And pray for my dad too. He needs strength too to be able to do everything he does. So my parents are in their 80s, and I'm telling you, they are amazing. Even my mom, with not feeling so good, she still manages to keep in touch with people, and she still manages to write to me, and when we text, and she's pretty cool, I think anyway, and my dad is too. Okay, you guys, we're going to get going and hope that other people will catch this later, or maybe join us when we start. So, welcome back to this week's Twerski's Torah Tidbits. And I'm Moa Devora, your hostess for this program. And this is where when we study, we're looking at insights from Rabbi Abraham J. Twerski. May his memory be for a blessing. He passed away last year. Now, throughout Rabbi Twerski's life, he continued with the legacy of his ancestors who founded the Hasidic movement. And the most illustrious of his ancestors was Rabbi Nahum Menachem Twerski, who lived in the mid-18th century in Chernobyl, and he wrote one of the great classic commentaries on Torah called Me'or Enayim. Now, Rabbi Abraham Twerski, the Twerski that we're talking about tonight, was an MD. And in his psychiatric practice, he really was intent on helping his patients to learn how to apply the teachings of the Torah to their regular everyday lives. And as many of you know, I've been very inspired by this man over the last few years, and his commentaries, I'm going to show you, are available in this wonderful book. I hope it's not backwards, called Twerski on Chumash. The Chumash, of course, is the 5 books of the Torah. Chamesh and Chumash, we call the 5 books of the Torah, the Chumash. Well, this is published by ArtScroll, so you can go on to ArtScroll and see if you can find it. It was sold out for a while, but I think it's back in print. Okay, so this week we're going to get started on Parashat Shemini, the Torah portion called Shemini, and Shemini means the 8th day, and I have called this study the wonders of the 8th day. So let's do the blessing. I forgot to do it a couple of times in a row. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Well, we're going to start with this first verse in our parsha on Leviticus or Vayikra 9:1. It says, "It was on the 8th day Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel." Well, let's see what Rabbi Abraham Twerski has to say about this. And now I'm quoting him. "This was the 8th day of the consecration of the Mishkan, the sanctuary, the tabernacle in the wilderness, the day on which the divine service began. It was a day of unprecedented joy, a day on which God rejoiced as with the creation. Yet the Midrash states that whenever we find the word Vayehi, meaning it was, it is indicative of some tragic occurrence. The Midrash Rabbah says that the tragic occurrence on that day was the death of Aaron's 2 sons, Nadav and Abihu. Well, he continues and says, Rabbi Yisroel of Rizhin, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Rizhin, gives an additional explanation for the word Vayehi. The original divine will was that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, should be manifest everywhere in the world, as was said after the giving of the Torah at Sinai. And it says there, wherever I permit my name to be mentioned, I shall come to you and bless you. This is in Exodus 20, verse 21. It was not until the sin of the golden calf, the Egel Zahav, we say, that the universality of the imminent divine, or the imminent, divine presence was lost and was now circumscribed within a structure. That's from Sforno, and he says that on Exodus chapter 25, verse 9. The Mishkan, for all its holiness, was nevertheless a reminder of the loss the world sustained as a result of the sin of the golden calf. Therefore, although it was a joyous occasion, the consecration of the Mishkan had an element of sadness, and this is a reason for the term Vayehi. Rabbi Twerski continues and says, we are to never forget the sin of the golden calf, the Egel Zahav. As it says, remember, do not forget that you provoked your God in the wilderness. This is Deuteronomy 9:7. Nevertheless, joy and sadness can coexist. When we enter the shul or the synagogue to pray, we should rejoice that we have a place where there is a greater imminence of the Shekhinah. But we should also remember that if Klal Israel, the entire Jewish people, behaved in a way that would rectify the sin of the golden calf, we would merit the return of the universal imminence of the divine Shekhinah, the dwelling presence. So, my friends, why is it so important to have the dwelling presence on the earth? Why do we need a Mishkan or a Beit HaMikdash, a temple today, a holy temple today? This is what we're going to be studying tonight. My prayer for us all is that by the end of this, we will be moved to build that Beit HaMikdash on earth, not through actual stones and mortar, but that we would take the actions together that demonstrate that we long for that day that is coming, and until it comes, that we will see ourselves as those living stones fitted together into a holy house for God's service. As we will see, those are the actions that will bring the Shekhinah back and will usher in that final redemption that we're all waiting for. Well, we're going to move on to the Midrash Rabbah. In Vayikra, or Leviticus Rabbah, chapter 11, section 4, the Midrash offers a really interesting interpretation on our above verse that I read, equating the 7 days of the inauguration of the priesthood and the dedication of the temple to the 7 days of creation. Where have we heard that before? The Midrash begins explaining the phrase, Vayihi bayom hashmini. It was on the 8th day. They cite a passage from Proverbs 9, verses 1 to 4, which says, wisdom has built her house. She carved out its 7 pillars. She prepared her meat and mixed her wine. She also set her table. She has sent out her maidens to summon or call upon the city heights. Whoever is unlearned, let him turn in here. He who is lacking in his heart, she speaks to him. Well, according to Rav Ahava Bar Kahana, this passage relates to the inauguration of the temple, of the tabernacle. He says, and he's going to explain what these things mean that's in Proverbs. Wisdom has built her house. This is a reference to Bezalel, about whom it is written, I have filled him with a godly spirit, with wisdom, insight, and knowledge, and with every craft. This is from Exodus 31, verse 3. She carved out its pillars, ha'amudim. These, he says, are referring to the 7 days of the inauguration, as it is written, for you shall be inaugurated for a 7-day period. That's Leviticus 8:33. And on each of these 7 days, Moses erected ha'emid, the same word as amudim, the pillars, and dismantled it at night. I'm going to explain this after we're done here. She prepared her meat. It literally says slaughtered her slaughtering. These, he says, are referring to the offerings brought during that period. She mixed her wine. These are referring to the wine libations offered during that period. She also set her table. This is a reference to the arranging of the showbread on the tabernacle's table during that time. She has sent out her maidens, na'arot, to summon. This, he says, is a reference to Moses, who sent out to call for Aaron, because Moses is called Na'ar, the youth, or the youth, in Exodus 2:6. Thus, he sums up, thus Rabbi Kahana sums up, thus it is written, it was on the 8th day Moses summoned Aharon and his sons and the elders of Israel. Okay, what does all this mean? The Midrash is explaining that only after the tabernacle was erected and dismantled for 7 days, for 7 successive days by Moses, and after Aaron had finished learning to perform the service, only then did God send Moses to call Aaron and his sons to perform this service. This was all, these 7 days was all practice and learning for them. And according to most of our sages, such as Rashi, Ibn Ezra, and also the Sifra, which is a halachic midrash on Leviticus or Vayikra, and others also said this, the 8th day was actually Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the first day of Nisan, the new moon of Nisan. In addition, the 7 days of the Milui, the inauguration of the priests, and the 7 pillars, Amudeya of Proverbs 9, represent the 7 days of creation. These are connected by the word Amud, which is spelled Ayin, Mem, Vav, Dalet. Now, I've shared this idea before in past teachings about this being the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash being a recreation of the world and a microcosm of the Garden of Eden. So now we have another confirmation from the Midrash about the Mishkan being a recreation of the world. And the priests in the temple, this means they have been doing the work that Adam Harishon, the first Adam, was supposed to do. Now, I'm going to share a section of commentary called Insights from the Kleinman edition of Vayikra Rabbah, or Leviticus Rabbah, on Parashat Shemini, which is quoted from several sources, Shem, Mishmuel, Safas, Emas, and Or Gedaliahu on Parashat Shemini. This section is called the Odyssey of Man, Creation, Revelation, and Redemption. I think you're going to enjoy this as much as I did when I read it. And it opens up for us the beautiful and the exquisite essence of the world, of the Mishkan, and the divine service by the priesthood of Israel. The Midrash expounds on a total of 4 interpretations of the meaning of the passage in Proverbs 9, which I read you. And they are 1, the 7 days of creation; 2, the giving of the Torah; 3, the final redemption; and 4, the inauguration of the tabernacle. I read you only the 4th one on the inauguration of the tabernacle, but I'm going to explain a little bit, or this commentary is going to explain a lot more, like I just said. All of these are elements of a single sweeping explanation, one that employs these 4 moments to chart the course, if you will, of man's progress from the first glorious instant of man's creation and his subsequent descent into sin until the advent of the final redemption and the realization of God's design for him. Now I'm quoting, "The purpose of man is to perfect creation." I know most of us, or many of us, have heard this before. Adam, the first man, was intended to guide all creatures in the service of God. The world that existed before Adam's sin was not the grossly physical world that we inhabit today, but it was a place which was much more connected to the realm that exists beyond time and space. Had Adam fulfilled his purpose, he would have brought to fruition the promise of creation with the revelation of the divine, all veils torn away, and the world filled to overflowing with knowledge of God. When Adam emerged from the primeval clay, the universe stood ready and poised on the brink of a great transformation to rise from darkness into the holy light of the divine presence. But Adam failed in his task. He succumbed to the temptation of sin, and the venom of the serpent was introduced into creation. The world became coarsened or hardened, and man with it. All that all of the things that once partook of the realm of the spirit descended into a state of utter physicality to become a world in which God's presence is hidden from view. Now, I'm still reading from the commentary here. This is the first of the Midrash's interpretations of the passage in Proverbs. God built the house of creation and carved out its 7 pillars. He populated it with living creatures, and he made the vegetation to nourish them. He created Adam and Eve, godlike beings who straddled both the upper world and the lower world, and he commanded them to elevate the world through worship of God. Foolishly, they forsook his will and brought sin and death into the world. He continues, or the commentary continues, many years passed before man was granted an opportunity to remedy the sin of Adam. The Midrash expounds this next pivotal moment, which occurred at the revelation of Sinai with the giving of the Torah. Here was Israel's chance to remake the world in God's image and undo the damage caused by Adam. When the Jews stood at Mount Sinai to accept the Torah, the defilement of the serpent was miraculously removed from them, according to the Talmud in Tractate Shabbat 146a, and they returned to the purity of Adam before he sinned, to a level comparable to that of Moses, who, akin to the very angels, ascended the heavens to receive the Torah. The people of Israel at that juncture, like Adam, were raised on high and were named God-like beings by the Holy One. Had all gone as planned, Moses would have returned to the camp, the tablets of the Torah in hand, and he and Israel in full communion with God would have transformed the world as originally intended. Then Israel stumbled into the sin of the golden calf. Thus, they too failed to accomplish their purpose. Well, after this second failure, God took another approach. Rather than scale the heights of godliness in a single moment of inspiration, man is instead enjoined to take an incremental approach. Get this, in which the world, bit by bit, over a period of many years, is slowly cleansed of impurity and brought closer to God. For this effort, God chose Aaron, who on the 8th day of the inauguration of the tabernacle brought down the divine presence to dwell in an earthly abode. Now, we've talked many times in the past about Aaron being a picture, a shadow, a type of Mashiach, because he's the first person in the Bible to be called Mashiach. Okay, to be anointed. Mashiach. All right, I'm going to continue. This began a process with Aaron as the high priest. This began a process of purification that will continue until the final redemption, when the venom of the serpent introduced through sin will be removed entirely from creation, and the cloak of the material will be lifted, the material world will be lifted, so that the divine presence, confined no longer to the holy, will be revealed throughout the world. As the prophet states in Isaiah 11:9, for the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem as the waters cover the sea. Thus will the promise of man be realized and the latent sanctity of creation made manifest. In recognition of this process, the Midrash interprets the passage in Proverbs that we read earlier as discussing both the tabernacle and the time of the final redemption. This idea that the passage alludes to the fulfillment of man's purpose in creation is revealed in the phrase, she sent out her maidens, she will call. The term tikra, she will call, implies the summoning of a person to fulfill his special calling. The calling of Adam and Eve and of Israel at Sinai was to bring all creation to a recognition of God and to lead them in his worship. God summoned them to their calling and named them God-like beings. They're not God, but God-like beings. We are made in his image. But in each case, they prove to be chasar lev, lacking in heart, without the fortitude demanded of one who would complete God's design. God then summoned Aaron at the inauguration of the tabernacle, as our verse states, Vayehi bayom hashmini kara Moshe le'aharon ulebanav. It was on the 8th day Moses called Aaron as his sons. He called them to their purpose, to bring the divine presence to dwell among Israel, to begin the holy work of cleansing and healing the world. I'm going to turn on the light here just a minute. In this instance, the Midrash does not expound the verse of lacking in heart, for the labors of Aaron were in no way lacking. Rather, through the service of Aaron, the divine presence took root in the earthly realm, both in the tabernacle and in the hearts of Israel, from where it influences the progress of history, chipping away little by little at the wall that separates creation from the Creator, steering a course even closer to that final revelation. This course will culminate one day in the final redemption, when the veils that conceal his presence will dissolve as the mist in sunlight, and the glory of God will burst forth to illuminate the darkness and burn away all wickedness forever. The world restored, God's hope fulfilled, Israel's faith rewarded, man's long journey finally complete. So, through this, my friends, I'm not saying that Aaron is the Mashiach, but he is a picture of the work that our Messiah, Yeshua, has done for us. We can see how the Mishkan and later the Beit HaMikdash is the final step God has chosen in this world for his plan of redemption to be completed. Now listen, here we are. We don't have a physical temple, and the divine service is not in effect. How much should we mourn this, given what we now understand about the purpose of the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash and the temple service? However, because that's a picture of what you and I are supposed to be doing, not literally the temple service, but let me move forward. Given what we've been taught by Rabbi Itzhak Shapira and Rabbi Stephen Bernstein and many of our morim in the Yeshivat Shuvu where I study, we can see that through us, the temple and the divine service continues on, though it's, of course, in a memorial or commemorated fashion. We can understand how much we each are integral in influencing this progress of history, this chipping away little by little at the wall that separates the creation from our Creator. We're to be doing things that steer the course closer and closer to revelation and that final redemption. You see, we are each doing something very important. Each of us is a little Mishkan, or a little Beit HaMikdash, a little temple. When we pray the prayers of Israel, particularly the Amidah, the standing prayer, we commemorate the temple service. We are remembering. We are doing what we can. When we receive the Shabbat on Friday night, we commemorate aspects of the temple service. When our tables actually become an altar. Our challah, the bread that is served especially for Shabbat, represents the bread of the presence in the temple. We're remembering. We're doing what we can. When we gather on Shabbat and sing our prayers in the morning for Shacharit service, we are commemorating aspects of the temple service. We are remembering. We are doing what we can. When we keep or guard any of the Moedim, the appointed times, or what people commonly call the feasts of Israel, we commemorate aspects of the temple service. We are remembering. We are doing what we can. And when we do what we can, Rabbi Yisrael's words will eventually come to pass. Remember what he said. The original divine will was that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, should be manifest everywhere in the world, as was said after the giving of the Torah at Sinai. Wherever I permit my name to be mentioned, in the synagogue, at your tables on Shabbat, at home when you're praying, wherever you are, wherever you're discussing words of Torah, this means there. Wherever I permit my name to be mentioned, I shall come to you and bless you. Exodus 20:21. There is wonderful news in all of this. Hashem, he never gives up on using us frail, fallen human beings, mankind, in his redemptive plan. Through Yeshua HaMashiach, also called the last Adam, fallen man is once again in partnership with the Holy One. Blessed is he. And don't you think that it's any less important than what Adam was called to do in the Garden of Eden? Because through Mashiach, through Yeshua, we have even greater potential for deeper intimacy. And because we are choosing to do the mitzvot while we are frail and fallen and have an evil inclination that tries to pull us away from obedience to God, God cherishes when we fight our evil inclination and we do his commandments as he has asked us to. We all have the potential to bring the Geulah, leading to the final recreation of the world. 7 is the number which symbolizes perfection. Perfection which can be achieved by natural means or within the natural order. On the other hand, 8 is symbolic of something that is a step above the natural order, higher than nature and higher than its limitations. The 8th day also points at something which is, for example, I was going to repeat the sentence and I don't need to. For example, circumcision takes place on the 8th day. Hanukkah is celebrated for 8 nights. We celebrate a holy day at the end of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, called Shemini Atzeret, the 8th day, and it represents the Olam Haba, the world to come, the new heaven and the new earth, and the new Jerusalem. The 8th day is about our identity outside of time and space, being one with Israel. The 8th day is about dedication, rededication, and renewal. The 8th day is about new beginnings and recreation. The 8th day is our final destination. Let's get there together. Well, I want to thank you all for joining with me tonight. I so enjoy being able to share these insights and things that I'm learning with you. And I truly appreciate all your kind and encouraging words and comments that I read afterwards. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me privately. And if you are interested in studying where I study at Yeshivat Shuvu, please go to Shuvu, SHUVU.tv, Shuvu.tv. Shuvu means return. If you want to learn more about what we call Messianic Jewish faith, please visit us at www.blessisraelnetwork.com. You will find both a Facebook and YouTube icon where you can connect with us and find more teachings on the Torah and other interesting things about Israel, current events, things like that my husband talks about. In addition, please consider partnering with us. You will find all the information to do so on the Donate tab of our website. You know, it's hard to believe that we've just finished with Pesach, with Passover, and now we are counting the Omer up to Shavuot, and I'd like to say the blessing and count the Omer with you, with all of us together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al seferat ha'omer. Today is 8 days, which is 1 week and 1 day of the Omer. Shabbat Shalom, my friends, and with God's help, I will be with you again next week. Have a wonderful Shabbat with the divine presence. I hope he visits you. If you have guests, he really will. Litraot. See you soon.